is that everything is gonna turn into a chat-based interface. You don't need interfaces anymore, and I find it very funny. We have reached a place where just by prompts we are able to create, sometimes dashboards, sometimes example things that either we could use for user testing or to show it to potential customers and build the product along with them.
All the individuals are responsible for each product, or managers are responsible for each product?
When I joined Razorpay, we were a team of 3 designers. We are a team of 70 designers right now. It's very important that you create processes and systems which are very custom to how your org operates, and for that depth is critical. How well do you know that, hey, if this user thinks this way and they are using these all products, they have these kind of anxieties and these kind of goals, how is that this product should be designed?
Startup like a Razorpay, the design team execution should not become as a blocker. Welcome to another episode. Today I'm excited to host Saurabh Soni, a head of design at Razorpay. Over the years, Saurabh has worked across startups and large organizations, taking on roles that varied from deep product thinking to crafting visual and interaction excellence. His wide-ranging experiences across MVPs, skill products, and diverse team has shaped his unique ability to grow both horizontally across skills and vertically into leadership. Currently at Razorpay, Saurabh plays a pivotal role into driving UX writing principles, setting design benchmarks, and integrating AI into everyday design execution, helping the team to thrive into fast-paced, hyper-growth environment. In this episode, we dive into the principles of UX writing at Razorpay, setting benchmarks and design principles, evolving design patterns, leveraging AI into day-to-day design execution, guiding teams from chaos to structured success, best practices for scaling design teams, and key insights into hiring. If you are curious about scaling design teams, adapting to AI-led challenges, and learning how to grow across roles and skills in product design, this episode is packed with real-world insights. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube. Your support helps us bring in more insightful conversation with industry leaders. Let's jump in and hear from Saurabh. Hey Saurabh, thanks for joining today. It's a pleasure having you.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Great. Saurabh, if we see Razorpay today in India, right, it's the biggest fintech giant. And at the same time offering a lot of product offerings, which is in the accepting a payment, payroll, lending, credit, so on and so forth, right? If we see the crucial part of all these product offerings, right, one of the major aspect in this products are what you communicate to user at a different touch points, which becomes more essential because that's where they are taking their financial decisions with the product. When we had a last conversation, you told me about that there is no particular UX writing team in Razorpay. That got me more curious because that's a major and very crucial aspect of this entire product design. Help us understand how does that work in the first place, and what are the principles that you have set for your team so that they work very efficiently for this product suits.
All right. So first of all, as you mentioned, right, Razorpay is a plethora of products, and in fact, you can call it a B2B product. But even within B2B, if you look at an organization, there are so many different kind of users, ranging from a product manager to someone in finance teams, to someone, for example, HR team for payroll, and various business teams. So with so many different kind of people we interact over the product, that it's important that the copy lands right to each of these personas. Now, how do we do it right, and what's our philosophy over it? So we see designers or product designers being generalist, that they should have an ability to understand the end-to-end experience on their own. And at the same time, the kind of products that we are building, they are pretty technical in nature. They have a financial, there is a heavy domain bias in the thing that is there. So for us to do copyright, it's important that a person who understands this end to end is actually working on it, which happens to be a design generalist. Now on UX copy, hence I look at it also being a part of this designer's end-to-end process that they work on copy, and why not a separate UX writing team?
Exactly.
Right. I think of it this way, that at this point in time, the pace at which we are working, it's important that there are people who understand the end-to-end workflow really, really well, and that happens to be a designer. So they are best suited at this point in time of doing and writing the right UX copy. For example, someone needs to understand that, for example, in particular, when you talk about payments, right? There are states of a payment. For example, it's authorized, then it's captured, then it's, maybe it's refunded, and what all these technical terms. So there is a heavy domain knowledge which this person has. And generally, for everyone within the team, English is a primary or secondary language. And hence, with this kind of context as well as the skill of English, it works out well for designers. Where it would definitely make sense to have UX writers as a dedicated function is, say, if we are expanding into 10 different geographical locations which have each of their own language, or maybe even way of writing language. And then it might truly make a sense that, hey, we now need expertise in this one particular thing because that's our way to scale. But in our current way of scaling, this current generalist model fits the best.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Is it fair to say that having the in-depth context plays a major role for product designers to be in that UX writing role as well?
Definitely. And without that, it would get insanely difficult for someone to actually do a great job at UX writing for a particular domain heavy product in particular.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Help us understand in even for the product designers to write the perfect copy for a particular state, particular screen. Is there any top level principles that you have set for the team so that they do not make mistakes, which has a lot to do with payments for the users?
Sure. Maybe I can zoom out a little bit on design principles in itself, and then from that, how do we derive our copy
Sure.
principles as well?
Sure.
So I think first of all, it's a huge myth that B2B products can be averagely designed. They don't need to be greatly designed as good as as B2C
B2C
products,
products, of course.
right?
Yeah.
I am always surprised when someone says that, because hey, it's also humans only at the end of that experience.
If we look at Slack in that sense, right? It's beautifully designed
Yeah.
interface.
In fact, most of the products that even at Razorpay we use, for example, Gmail is so well designed. We have for a long time we were using Asana, and Asana is also so well designed.
Correct.
So, and it's also very evident when some product is not so well designed. People in office are we all crib about certain tools, and I don't want to take those names, but there are tools that for which all of us crib that, hey, why is it so badly designed? In
Yeah.
fact, most of the HR softwares are so badly designed,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So if it's humans at the end of it, it's important that we follow the same principles. In fact, in context of B2B, what is further challenging is the domain knowledge. And in B2C, it's easy for a designer or for a UX writer to understand that, hey, I also, let's say, order food from Swiggy, and I work at Swiggy, so I can very well, or at
Relate
least
with the
yes,
problems.
understanding
Yeah.
the context becomes very easy.
Correct.
But say here, someone imagining that, how is that someone in a finance team is actually filing and writing for taxes, and how is filing different from actually paying for taxes, and what is accrual of taxes, and there's so much depth.
True.
So that is the challenging part of designing for B2B. So I would say that designing for B2B is likely even more challenging and has to be done well, because a person in their office setting is often even more worried about, hey, what could go wrong if I click a wrong button, than to say, doing it on a B2C product. While talking about principles of UX writing, I would say principles of experience automatically get divided, and the same are the principles for design or principles for writing. So let me talk about what are our principles of giving the right experience to our users, right?
Yeah, please.
It starts with the first one being that, of course, you are a B2B product, but you need to come out as a very simple, very easy to use, where often we discuss between ourselves that, hey, let's imagine a tier 3, tier 4 shopkeeper, or a person who has maybe a sari shop or something, who wants to go online and sell online.
Yeah.
Right? For those people, it should be easy to get onboarded.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
The second principle we have is the experience should be forgiving. That means that a wrong click for a user could mean a big difference in somewhere in the money. It could
If you
lead to
can
a lot
drive
of
with some
frustration.
examples
For
for this
example,
forgiving.
while someone is trying to make a refund, right?
Okay.
Or when someone is adding an invoice, and which is a very lengthy flow, where someone could make a mistake of a different amount in the beginning and different amount in the end, right? Now, in both of these cases, maybe I can add one more example and then I'll tell what it means. Say in Razorpay is a fairly complex product suite, and someone in the beginning might say, "Hey, I want to use this product," and later on they realize that, hey, they want to do something else. Now, in each of
Correct.
these cases, it's important that, hey, the user has a choice even later on to change what they want to do on the move. A user should have a choice that when in this entire flow, when
Correct.
in initially and later you added a different amount, we should highlight that, hey, you are adding different amounts.
Yeah.
There could be an issue. Can you please check? Like, can we be more proactive in telling them and highlighting them where they feel that, hey, even if I made a mistake, Razorpay will help me figure it out.
Correct. So they
So
are trusting products. So it's your job that you make sure that they understand that
exactly.
they have made a mistake. Yeah.
Exactly. And there are also tools on the other spectrum, which is where, a mistake happens and people teach that, hey, don't click this button, don't do this, don't do this. And that's a like in enterprise software, that's a pain
Correct.
point.
Correct.
The third principle coming, talking about the entire B2C experience is business or a office job is often a tough one for most of the people, right?
Yeah.
And there, your software should not end up becoming one of those pain points for that user that, hey, I have to go again and use this thing, and it's so painful, right? In fact, especially for someone when they use it day in, day out. For example, the banking products, finance teams, it's home for finance teams.
Yeah.
The payment gateway product, it's home for a lot of payments PMs, right?
Hmm.
For them, all these things should feel like enjoyable, where it should feel like a place that, hey, it has gotten it all figured out. So it should look visually comfortable. It
Hmm.
should, it should not look with very technical illustration and everything. It should look with something that just makes it easy.
More pleasing in
Yes, so it
nature.
should be visual,
Yeah.
pleasing, and comforting. So that's the
Right.
third principle, which is how you make it delightful. And on UX, the same things apply. That, hey, copy, make it very easy. Instead of calling it fetching it, call it loading your payment information or
Right.
payment success status or something of that sort.
Hmm.
When it comes to being forgiving, the copy has to tell it to the user that, hey, you can change this later, right? It
Hmm.
would be such a relaxing point at that when you have to make a choice and you say that, hey, you can change it later also, and you know that, okay, fine, I can do it later.
Yeah.
And the third one, which is delightful, and I think often delight is associated just with maybe motion or making something visual, but
Hmm.
UX copy has a major role to play. In fact, that's the easiest way to reach high delight,
Yeah.
where instead of the success message just looking like, all right, your payment is successful,
Hmm.
can it say that you are ready for the next step, here you go, and
Hmm.
maybe a rocket or emoji or something of that sort, right? It can make
Correct.
it very conversational, very comforting. So yeah.
And I really find it very interesting when you said that it has to be it has to be joyful in nature, because whenever you comes to any B2B product, right, your first thought process will be, I just quickly want to do my job and just come out of it,
Right.
right? So that frustration is at the start of this using entire experience, right?
That's the expectation that I'll be frustrated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that definitely makes sense. Saurabh, help us understand here that lots of financial products who are currently offering different segment of fintech, right? Whether it's lending or credit or accounting, whatever that might be, always looks up to Razorpay as a benchmark, right? I want to understand what's the benchmark you have set for your team, which caters to literally global audience in nature.
So let me first, in subjective terms, put how I see benchmark or how we at Razorpay see benchmark.
Okay.
Um, if the design becomes a competitive edge,
Hmm.
if it becomes one of the key reasons why your customer or your user wants to use your product or continues to use your product, is the benchmark, right? Now,
Correct. Yeah.
uh, now there are certain ways in which we try to give it certain numbers so that we can continuously measure it. For example, we have something called as a UX score for
Hmm.
certain key flows. For example, checkout, razor-based checkout that everyone uses. We have a metric called UX score, which is a mixture of certain tests, subjective tests that they are done, and then how do users rate the experience over that, as well as certain objective metrics, including like load time and the funnel conversion
Uh,
and all of it. So all this metric, for example, helps us understand how greatly how what kind of benchmark we are on onto our certain experiences.
so is it fair to say that rather than looking out for the other inspirations and things, right, you are always looking internal data points and always keep the bar high
So
for
of
all the
course,
metrics?
it's actually a mixture of both.
Okay.
For example, metrics are often internal. In fact,
Hmm.
we also do competitive comparison, and through that also make a sense that not only we should be better, but we should be better by a huge margin. So
Okay.
that so in fact, when you say
What do you mean
benchmark,
by the huge margin in
so
that
for
sense?
example, there are ways in which you measure likeliness of a user, a
Hmm.
typical UX scoring exercise, that hey, how much they like or they find that experience usable.
Hmm.
Now, if you can do that same exercise with Razorpay plus, three, four other products at the same time, and it can give us a lens at what's the likeliness or what's the intent of using a particular product.
Saurabh, I want to move the lever into slightly different direction now. Since we have seen the rapid growth of AI products coming into the market and solving different problems in a different way, what got me very curious about is that it is offering the different capability of a technology which we used to leverage earlier compared to that, right? But the design patterns that we have been using to craft those earlier products, right? I feel that somehow the other way will not be more relevant for this AI products anymore. So in that case, help us understand how these design patterns are changing so that we create and craft the good, usable AI products.
Sure. So we have seen, two dramatic shifts
Hmm.
in how we are building and what we are building with
Correct. Yeah.
the entire last 1 year, when we have seen AI, Gen AI has become so much more capable.
Yeah.
So
More mainstream, I would say.
exactly. So first, let me talk about in terms of how design patterns, which is how products are gonna evolve. I think
Hmm.
again, one myth that I often see in when there are these dinner table conversations around design is that everything is gonna turn into a chat based interface. You don't need interfaces anymore, and I find it very funny, right?
Absolutely.
In fact, I think what we are seeing today as the chat based interfaces, they are the probably the DOS prompt equivalent of how interfaces used to be for in
Correct.
general operating system.
Correct.
So we will see a massive evolution. In fact,
Hmm.
as eventually the role of technology is to make sure interacting between technology and information
Hmm.
via humans is as natural as it can be. So for example,
Hmm.
speaking out and asking something to to a tech piece is way
Right.
more natural in certain situations as compared to typing. For example, if I just quickly
Hmm.
wanted to find out what's the capital of XYZ, I think a quick voice chat where hey, how much, what's the capital, and then it gives me back an answer is way more convenient than to type out the entire sentence.
True.
So
True.
voice is much more natural. We'll see dashboard and a lot of interfaces getting hyper personalized. For example,
Hmm.
and we think in this in terms of Razorpay,
Hmm.
um, dashboards as of now are fixed. You see almost a similar dashboard, or more or less you could move certain things up and down, hide and show.
Yeah.
But AI would help us reach a place where interfaces are so customized that hey, someone could type it out that I want a dashboard where I see these things, and this kind of a report on an everyday basis,
Correct. Correct.
because
Correct.
every business might have a very different kind of a use case.
And that differs from a domain to domains also.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are going to see this hyper personalization. In fact, someone might not even type. It might just understand from user behavior that, hey,
Yeah.
typically your other products and dashboards look like this, and this is what you are familiar with. This is,
Hmm.
or maybe the interface built. So I think that right now we are literally a DOS prompt of AI interfaces, and we have a massive way to go from over here. Maybe whatever we see in science fiction, some of that might just come true.
For sure, for sure. That led me to think about one interesting consideration of how the designers are working today. Will it be always necessary for designers to understand how this capability of technology is going to evolve with AI to create the right type of experiences for the product? Because as you said that there won't be any more interfaces for a user to interact with, and more of an experience sort of a structure will be there that product will offer to the user. So will it be always required for a designers to understand the technology better in a way and take the right decisions for the solution?
I think so. In fact, I'm quite certain about that.
Okay.
Um, the definition of technology will keep on changing. For example, technology is
Mhm.
always something which is at the cutting edge of what's not the norm, right?
Yeah.
So if a designer wants to truly build products which are game changing and make that big delta,
Hmm.
um, they would still need to be at the cutting edge and at least having that awareness about what's going on so that they could partner with respective tech peers and actually crack solutions which might previously be almost impossible to build. For
Right.
example, even at this point in time, for example, right, for a designer it's and let's talk about the simple chatbot experience, right? For a designer to be able to create a great chatbot experience, not only they need to know that, hey, how do I create an interface where there is a chat box and bubbles and whatnot and all of that,
Yeah.
but also think of that, hey, what kind of prompts would lead to what kind of response, and then hence how do I create the right environment to user to type out maybe the prompt in that particular way or ask it the question in
Correct.
a particular way, and what kind of edge cases do I need to take care of. So now
Correct.
here it would become that, hey, how well do you understand when AI could hallucinate, does not hallucinate. So I
Hmm.
think that always designers who have a technical edge are going to build very innovative design solutions.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And at a Razorpay design team, how AI products is helping team to work efficiently on their day-to-day execution?
Some of the things we have actually seen very massive effect already coming in.
Okay.
um,
If you can dive with
yes.
some examples,
Yes.
maybe.
So, these days, no code tools to build products and website has become insanely easy with things like
True.
Lovable, Bolt, or Vercel. Um, Now, previously, let's say we wanted to create a prototype and maybe demonstrate it to a customer or try it out with users.
Hmm.
It Of course, you would do a massive exercise where you would create prototype using Figma and then you would do all of the linking and everything.
Yeah.
From that, we have reached a place where just by prompts, we are able to create, sometimes dashboards, sometimes example things that either we could use for user testing or to show it to, potential customers and build the product along with them.
Hmm.
So this prototyping part has become insanely easy. And, this
Ex-
is no exaggeration.
Hmm.
You can actually create, for example, you can create interfaces where someone could type it out,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
it's not a mock typing where things actually everything responds on our end, so it
Yeah.
creates very realistic
It's a
prototype.
workable prototype, even with
Yes.
HTML, CSS, is what I think.
And on top of that, you could do some integration. For example, if we wanted to try out, hey, we want our users, and this was something that we had recently done. We
Okay.
want users, let's say, to when they come on dashboard,
Hmm.
and if someone wants to, let's say, update a setting, hey, why do they have to go to settings and then over there find where is exactly that thing and then change it? How about you just type it out that, hey, can you update the setting,
Hmm.
right? Now, for us to learn that what might users type out there, it's
Correct.
important that we have a working prototype where it also responds back. So you could do a
Hmm.
integration, and again, integration is as easy as writing that, hey, integrate this thing with this thing so that it operates this way. And within 10 minutes, you can have like a real chat GPT integration as well. So
Hmm.
you can actually try it out and see how it already responds. So that part has become insanely easy.
Okay.
Apart from this, there is one major piece that has also become very easy for us is the Figma to code or the design to code part.
Okay.
We have reached a capability where at this point in time a significant proportion of our front end code, and because our design system has also reached that maturity, we can generate directly from designs
The
fairly well
React
written
library,
code.
let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the design system is a React library.
Hmm.
Designers and developers use literally the same design system, and
Hmm.
hence whatever is in design, it comes out as is on front end, and
Right.
hence there is a Figma to code plugin, which we have built internally,
Oh,
where
nice.
the code, the first draft of the code is already written, and it is boosting the productivity between design engineering collaboration as well as engineering timelines significantly.
Uh, with this type of a setup, I guess the experimentation can happen at a lightning speed, right? You
Exactly.
don't even need to wait for front-end developer to create that thing entirely and then you roll out to the user.
Exactly. In fact, what this is also going to lead to is,
Hmm.
at this point in time, for a designer,
Hmm.
I would put it this way, that let's say for an entry level designer,
Yeah.
maybe 70-80% of their skill set is how well they can use tools, and they can get things built.
Uh,
And maybe say 20% is about thinking, and because you often get mentorship from maybe senior
correct.
designers who help you over there.
Hmm.
This proportion would keep on changing, where a significant proportion of a designer's mental space as well as time goes in thinking what's right and evaluating, experimenting, learning,
Hmm.
and very small proportion, maybe a reverse 80-20, where
Huh.
20% time is gone actually into building something.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So Saurabh, I think Razorpay have started with a one product at the start, then have built couple of products in a way, and also there were a couple of acquisitions as well, right? Uh, from very outsider perspective, if we see there are lots of chaos from the different products having different designs, design language and all, right? But right now at the stage where Razorpay is, we see there's a one family kind of a product suite entirely, right? And if we see there will be number of challenges in a way to cater to this challenges and then reach to the final stage. Help us understand how did you help your team to navigate those challenges from this lots of chaos to structured process and taking ownership of each at their end.
I would say startups are, first of all, bound to have chaos. I don't think I've seen a startup which didn't have chaos.
Even till
And
today there is a chaos.
yes. So, and I think some amount of chaos is necessary, because
Hmm.
um, to put it in other words, chaos basically means that you are trying to outdo yourselves, right?
Right.
If things are too comfortable, that means that maybe you are settling for something low.
Correct.
Um, and chaos comes because someone is trying to change the status quo, trying to do something which is not the norm right now. For example, things could be all looking great, but someone is trying to push the bar of design higher, someone is trying to push the bar of how to use AI products rightly higher, and some of these
Right.
things likely create chaos until you reach a state of stability.
Hmm.
So what, and then to your question in particular, how it started with Razorpay, of course. Razorpay started as one product company where it was just payment gateway, and then
Correct.
we made bunch of things on top of it, like payment links, payment pages, and whatnot. There were more and more product lines. I think at this point in time we have roughly 50 products, right? And bunch of these products were also acquisitions,
Hmm.
which meant that they have probably entirely different looking as well as a different tech stack dashboard.
Right.
Some of these products were internally also spun out as a organization,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it was important to keep them independently operating so that they can do fast. And in that independence, teams took certain design calls also, to make sure that the experience stands out, because that was the way to win in those domains.
And as you rightly put, right, for the startup like a Razorpay, the design team execution should not become as a blocker. So
Yes.
you also have to optimize for that.
Yes. In fact, we have to be at the cutting edge, because
Exactly.
that has been the differentiator of Razorpay as compared to everything else that exists.
Hmm.
So, the way to resolve this,
Right.
the only way I have found, which works every time, is leaders have to be in depth. That means that
Okay.
leaders have to very thoroughly understand. For example, managers of teams, they need to make sure that they understand every person's, what the problem that they are working on, what's the context, how they are working on it. Now, of course, for a manager of five, it would not be possible that they are in depth of each of these five individuals and their work to full extent. But then you make certain priorities or choices, that hey, these are five most important projects that I
Right.
am going to make sure that we excel at them in terms of the process as well as in terms of the outcomes.
Hmm.
And for that, that is something that gives the team a thorough understanding of what's going on at ground. And now the same has to happen with, say, if there are more chains of leader. For example, right now we are a relatively flat structure.
Okay.
There are individuals, then there are managers, and then I am here,
So
right?
all the individuals are responsible for each product, or managers are responsible for each product?
Individuals are often responsible for multiple products.
Oh,
So
okay.
even that is the case. And there you can say managers are responsible for a particular product line. For example, payments is a product line for which you have various products.
Absolutely, yeah.
When there were these many lines of products, the first step that was critical was making sure everyone is in depth. Second
Correct.
is, now how do you create processes and systems,
Hmm.
and even do tooling which
Yeah.
is right for that particular problem. In fact,
Hmm.
I think one of the few like what I learned by doing some mistakes initially,
Yeah.
that hey, you can't just borrow any other's design process or any other's company's ways of working directly into your way of working, because you have your own problem context as well, your own cultural context, right? There
Hmm.
are certain things that people believe that they want to do, don't want to do. So it's very
Yeah.
important that you create processes and system which are very custom to how
Hmm.
your org operates, and for that, the depth is critical.
Absolutely, absolutely. In that case, help us understand how how basically the Razorpay team have think about scaling a design team, let's say, and
Right.
hiring different managers.
In fact, when I joined Razorpay, we were a team of 3 designers.
Hmm.
Roughly, we are a team of 70 designers right now.
Okay.
And in fact, from around the time when I had joined, for next 4 to 5 years, the team expanded. Like this entire expansion of 3 to 70 designers roughly has happened during that time,
Right.
right? Now that was the time of hyper acceleration for us as well in terms of people growth.
Correct.
And while hiring for it, our approach was look at hiring like a design problem statement in itself.
Okay. Can you
Uh,
put some lights on it?
Now, what that means is, at the end of it, the users are people who are interested in applying at Razorpay, and the problem statement is how do we find right people who would become part of Razorpay's design journey or a growth journey,
Right.
right? Now, if you break down this thing into various parts, the first part is how do you find those people who are likely to be a fit for the roles that you are looking for.
Hmm.
The second part to it is how do you design your interview process in a way where it selects the right kind of people.
Hmm.
And third is how do you now make sure that the way in which you are making those decisions, how do you do those decisions, and later on how do you act on them. Now, to give you an example,
Correct. Yeah.
um, we for reaching out to the right people, right, we realized at a point in time that campuses are actually a great place to hire from, because we get very fresh talent, and people who are very enthusiastic, who think out of the box and really want to make a mark on the world.
Right.
With that, we realized that okay, but with the traditional campus placement way of hiring,
Hmm.
we would go to 1 or 2 campuses max, right? How is
Correct.
it we can reach out to the top talent within India, and get access to best of the best designers out
Yeah.
there? So we launched something called anti placements, right?
Okay.
And the idea was we want to do placements very anti placement way, right?
Okay.
which was
How does that work?
which was that, first of all, there was no CGPA cutoff.
Okay.
There was no criteria in terms of what degree is required for you
Hmm.
to apply onto
And
this role.
specifically for design hiring
Specifically
only.
for design hiring,
Okay.
yes.
Hmm.
And there is no experience limit as well. In fact, we had certain people who had also come in for from experienced backgrounds, but
Hmm.
we were hiring for our entry level roles. So
Okay.
with that exercise, in that year, we found some of the best talent from India,
Hmm.
and we repeated this exercise again, and that has worked very well, because we again wanted to do the same thing. And how the process was optimized now, because you do this as a campaign,
Hmm.
it's possible to find some of the best folks in a, say, time frame of just 10 days. right,
True.
than to do a very long exercise. So it was a win-win. It was win for the topmost designers. It was a win for Razorpay, and then of course they could. Many of them have grown quite well at Razorpay.
Help us understand, since we talked about uh, the freshers who want to join a design team at Razorpay, right? But when you want to hire a mid-level person in your team, what do you look for in this exercise entirely? The reason I'm asking this question is because there's a lot of vague in this particular role, and the way different companies define this particular role is also different, right? And with the different competencies, of course. So what your take on this?
Absolutely. In fact, maybe that thinking has also evolved in last 1 year because of how AI has changed things. But I'll tell you the high level principles.
Please.
There are two inputs on which a designer works. First is the input that often is owned by a product manager in an organization, which is hey, we want to solve this functional problem or this business problem, right?
Hmm.
We want to make sure that users are able to achieve this,
Correct.
right? So a designer takes this input, and the other input, which is the value that designer themselves bring, is
Hmm.
the user empathy, understanding what are users goals, how do they think, what do they want to do, and
Correct.
doing a mixture of this business problem to solve and this user problem to
Yeah.
solve, and output as UI and UX, you can call it that way,
Yes.
right? Now, when someone at a senior level is doing it, right?
Hmm.
Of course, they should be someone who can solve such problems on their toes, right? Where
Hmm.
someone knows that, hey, I have solved such problems enough number of times that I have ways out and on how to solve this problem really well. And I think the most critical part is the empathy part,
Hmm.
because it's easy to create something, from a input requirement that, hey, create these many lines of items, and then on clicking, like it is very easy to create something which exists, but it is very hard to create something that is a great experience for the user that you are building for.
Right.
Now, how this has changed is as tools keep on becoming better and better. In
Yeah.
fact, now there is a possibility. In fact, we have tried it multiple times, and we have reached decent enough outcomes where you can input a PRD to a to like Lovable or something, and it can generate the first draft, right,
Of UI.
of UI. Right, it can
Okay.
actually give you a design solution,
Okay. Okay.
and hence for any organization, right, doing this part has become very easy, where you can create a functional solution, if you have written down that, hey, user should be able to do A, B, C, D things, right?
Correct. Correct.
What will become an edge for an organization is now the user empathy part,
Hmm.
right? That how well do you know that, hey, if this user thinks this way, and they are using these all products, they have these kind of anxieties and these kind of goals, how is that this product should be designed? Now
Hmm.
that nuance becomes way more important, and hence I would put a way higher weightage on the empathy aspect.
Correct. Right.
The other two things are more so of soft skills.
Okay.
The first one is, of course, communication, because you're working with a large organization, and you're working with people. It's important that someone knows how to collaborate, communicate, give feedback, take feedback, all of those pieces.
Hmm.
And the last one I would say is the attitude towards growth,
Hmm.
and growth and maybe change.
Hmm.
We will see the world changing a lot more rapidly than we have seen in last few years, right?
Absolutely.
And with
Yeah.
that, the attitude of whomever we are hiring at this point in time, we prefer where someone knows that the world is going to change, and I'm up for that change, I'm up for that growing, and
Hmm.
the response is not defending what exists, but the response is, I'm very excited about the future, and they can solve for those unknown problems.
Makes sense. So learning and growth mindset is something that you definitely double down on.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And for you guys, if you have any questions or queries that you think that we haven't covered in this conversation, let us know in the comment section below and we'll get it answered by Saurabh. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks Saurabh for joining today. It was really interesting conversation.
Thank you so much, I had fun as well.
Yeah, thanks. Our main goal with this podcast is to bring insightful conversation to help you grow in your career by inviting leaders who are driving impact at scale. If you find this episode useful, make sure you subscribe because that only helps us to invite incredible guests for the future episodes. And in case you have any suggestions about who we should invite and what all topic we should cover, let us know in the comment section below. We are always listening to make sure we deliver exactly what you are looking for.